years old, but there is talk that a new one is coming.
Our government has been focused on housing since actually the first election I ran in, since my by-election in 2013. It was a major focus of our campaign in 2015. And
Mr. Speaker, the IMF has issued a warning about the inflated Canadian housing market, cautioning that home prices have jumped more than 60% over the past 15 years. Canadian families with a personal debt burden, the IMF warns, is among the highest in the OECD, are at risk of $100,000 losses they can ill afford.
And it has been a focus every year since then. In the most recent budget, we included some important additional investments.
Welcome everybody. This is Marcel with IrnieracingNews, the Canadian journalist. Who can name these two witches on the screen right now? I'll give you 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. If you said Christia Freeland on the left and Victoria Newland on the right, you were correct. Now, what do these women have in common? Well, they both do wicked things to their countries and other countries. Victoria Newland, she likes to start wars in Ukraine, proxy wars. She likes to kill everybody. And Christia Freeland on the left here, well, she likes to make us go broke. And she likes to also promote proxy wars in Ukraine. But the woman on the left here, which we deal with in Canada, Christia Freeland, she also likes to talk about the housing crisis in Canada that she created, her and her Liberal posse. And, you know, an election's coming up in a year and so she likes to talk about this as it's a problem to solve, not one that they created. Now, this is a perfect time to have a little flashback to 8 years from now, before she went in office in 2016. Let's watch a video of Christia Freeland in 2015 talking about the housing crisis before there actually was unaffordable houses. Because I know when I was in 2015, there was options. There were options to rent. There was plenty of options to rent in 14 and 15. Ironically, we're on Christia Freeland's very own YouTube channel. That's right, guys. She has a YouTube channel, 477 subscribers. Sounds about right.
The honourable member for Toronto Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the IMF has issued a warning about the inflated Canadian housing market, cautioning that home prices have jumped more than 60% over the past 15 years. Canadian families with a personal debt burden, the IMF warns, is among the highest in the OECD, are at risk of $100,000 losses they can ill afford. The IMF says Canada needs better data, something this government is bizarrely opposed to, and more coordinated financial oversight. When will this government quit electioneering and fear-mongering and table a budget that addresses Canada's cooling economy and overheated housing market?
Woohoo. The irony, guys, March 10th, 2015, before she took power to represent her World Economic Forum father, the father of her ideology, before she was able to promote her Nazi ethics from her family, supposedly, complaining about the housing has gone up in the last 15 years. 15 years she's complaining that it went up. Well, I know every year back then, like in 2012 and 13 and 14, I remember specifically there was around 2.8% inflation. And I think in 14 there was a 1.6% inflation. There's limits when you rent places on the landlord to increase the rent. There's a fixed interest. There's a fixed inflation that they're allowed to do. It was 1.6, 1.8, 2.6 was the biggest. But now since she's been in office with Trudeau the turd, rent has doubled. I used to rent a basement house, a lower floor of a house, not just the basement, which had a backyard, a parking stall in the back, parking stall in the front, with a 750 square foot garage. Modern home for $1,300. Now that same home, that same space that I rented with is not even obtainable. It's not even, you can't even find it. You can't even find a place with a 750 square foot garage. Just the garage, just to rent a 750 square foot garage would be $2,500. You know, so that rental with the giant garage with like a place to live with 2 bedrooms would be like $3,000. Things have definitely changed, guys. What are your thoughts? Leave them in the comments. Cheers. Irnie Racing News.
They plan to raise both EI and CPP premiums, the paycheck tax, right at a time when it is we are facing 40-year highs in inflation, all-time highs in increased housing prices, 40-year highs in food price inflation, record food bank use. This is the last time that anyone should be raising any tax. Will the government back down from its planned tax hikes on paychecks and on energy?
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the economy, expectations matter. And that is why it is so irresponsible for these conservatives to talk down the Canadian economy. Yes, things are hard right now, but Canada is better positioned than any country in the world. We have the strongest economic growth and the lowest deficit in the G7.